Hello and welcome to another special episode of the Father and Son Pastime Podcast. I'm Patrick.
I'm Kevin. How are you?
That's my dad. Dad, it's a great day. Multiple reasons.
Yes.
It is our 150th episode.
Hard to believe.
I'm going to be sharing some stats and analytics with the lovely baseball fans at home and with us. And it is also our favorite day of the year.
It is.
It is a big recording day for us. If you're one of our now 70 subscribers, you probably know at this point that the day after Thanksgiving, my dad and I record about 8 episodes. We release them one at a day for a really active week. It's like the biggest time period where we get views and new subscribers because we're actively posting.
Yeah.
But that is today where we do an in-depth recap of every team's losses, every team's needs, and we conclude the day with our free agent predictions. So we're going to go just like we've done in the past, division by division. We're going to start with the AL East and eventually finish all the way out west, I assume, with the National League. But before we get into that, Dad, before we get into the Blue Jays and their almost World Series victory.
Probably the best World Series in a long time for excitement. Great World Series.
I love a Game 7.
Yeah.
Dad, I went into YouTube today. And I wanted to check some. Don't look at this. Don't look at the stuff yet. I want to reveal this to you live on air.
Okay.
No cheating. So we've been doing this recorded, Dad, for 6 years. 150 episodes. We'll be almost at 160 by the end of the day. So we really do record, pretty often. About 25 episodes or so a year. This is like the 8 of them. And then we do kind of like 1-2 a month every other time. So we're steady. Mm-hmm. We're not doing multiple times a week like some other podcasts, but, it fits our schedule. It's just a hobby for us. We have had 4,300 total views on our videos in that 6-year period.
That's impressive.
People have spent 382 total hours of their lives watching us, which is 16 days, by the way.
Wow.
And I know that's probably small time for some big YouTubers out there, but this is really awesome to us. We did, like I said, we did this 6 years ago. Last year was our most viewed video ever, which was our Offseason Outlook series on the West. Maybe it was because of the Dodgers. They had just won the World Series. Yeah. I said Yamamoto's name like 1,000 times, so the algorithm went wild.
You just like to say that word.
Yeah, but I also learned that most of our watchers are not subscribers. So please subscribe. Turn that number around. 75% of the people that watch us in these hours never subscribe to our podcast.
Interesting.
So thank you for casually listening, but please, in these first 3 minutes, at Pastime Podcast _ on a bunch of different things, and we are the Father and Son Pastime Podcast on Facebook and YouTube, where we love to interact with our viewers the most.
So they just see us on YouTube, click on it, and listen to us?
Yeah, there's a lot of suggestions that YouTube does if someone is always looking for baseball podcasts, videos on blank, Yamamoto, videos on the World Series. We might come up, and they might casually watch us for a few minutes. That all adds up to that 382 total hours. And maybe we're not interesting to people. I don't know. Maybe they just forget to hit the subscribe button. Maybe they just don't want to subscribe to anything on YouTube, just casually watch.
Right.
The other funny thing, Dad, and then we'll get into it for everyone watching, most of us are watching us on their TVs right now. Their YouTube app on their television, according to YouTube. Then it's cell phones. Then it's computers. And then it's like tablets. But most people are searching for us on their YouTube app on their smart television and putting us on the big screen.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun to think that I would say that's the least likely situation, at least for me on how I consume YouTube. But yeah, so people are watching us on their televisions, and we're in people's living rooms or maybe their home office or whatever it might be. And thanks for putting us up on those big screens. So tell us how we look in 1080p HD TV.
Maybe that's why they turn us off.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Dad, we are going to start with the AL East.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you for 6 long and great years, 150 episodes, incredible amount of total hours watching us.
Wow.
We're going to kick it off with the AL East. Like I said, Toronto's going to be our first thing we talk about. We're going to look at their losses and look at their needs. I think what we've done in the past years, Dad, is I've done the losses. You've kind of done their needs.
Beautiful.
And if we want to keep doing that, that sounds good to me.
Beautiful.
I have too long of lists probably. I go into, they lost their backup catcher. But it's really fun for me every year to kind of get into that. And I'll also kind of share that with their needs. I kind of have an estimate this year of how much money each team has to spend in free agency or extensions or whatever you want to say. But how much money is available. And I think that will be a really helpful conversation and a piece of information for our dutiful fans at home on the big screen.
Yeah, I think This offseason is going to be so interesting. I think it's going to start kind of like next week as we get to winter meetings. But with the CBA coming up at the end of the season, it's going to be interesting to see how many long-term contracts are signed and how many one-year contracts are signed, so they can end it at the end of this collective bargaining agreement and then move on to next year. A lot of people, depending on who you are, the superstars are going to get their multi-year, but I think a lot of folks are going to get a one-year deal, so then they can see where they are at the end of this agreement. So I think this probably could be the most interesting off season for quite some time. So it's been active so far, so that's good.
And it hasn't necessarily been outside the qualifying offers. We'll get into all that too. There hasn't been a lot of one-year contracts. Like we just saw Cease sign, and we're recording
7 years,
28th of November.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of some people are taking the longer, bigger, contracts. Some people just want the payday this year and everything. My dad said we'll be a labor pod this next off season and see if there is a lockout, see if there's a strike. Hopefully there's not.
Big issues out there.
But there is a lot to talk about. We'll get into it. Blue Jays' dad spent the 5th most in baseball last year. He got to the World Series. They did lock up Vladimir Guerrero basically forever with his extension middle of the season. Fantastic. Paid off dividends. This is your guy that is your ALCS MVP. This is the guy that put the team on his back, is your leader in your clubhouse. So he's locked up. But they are possibly losing his fellow compatriot Bo Bichette, who he was in the minors with, came up with, that legacy. Biggio was in there too. He is out there in the ether. Any 30 teams can sign him. He does have a qualifying offer attached to him, so there's a pick compensation there. But he's the big loss, one of the biggest names in free agency, so we'll circle back to him. They lost 2 pitchers, Max Scherzer and Chris Bassett. They'll also be people we talk about in the top 50 free agent list. They lost IKF, and I don't think they'll sign him back.
Not after he didn't get that jump off third base.
It's a fun thing to talk about.
Yeah.
And then they also lost Sir Anthony Dominguez, who is a really good reliever, and we'll talk about him.
Good pickup
in the top 50 as well. Dad, that is who they lost. I know they just signed a pitcher, but tell me what they needed. If you want to include Cease, feel free.
You know what? I'm thinking they were looking for a number 1 or 2 starter. I mean, they had good pitching, and really they had the guy at the end that came on strong for him and all that. But I think
Savage,
correct, from East Carolina. But I think they needed some big names at the start of their rotation. Dylan Cease arguably was like one of the top 3 pitchers you could get this offseason. So they swooped in quickly to get him off the market. And I think with the Blue Jays, it's pitching. Depending on who they lose, they probably need some people in the bullpen. And, they may even look at another starter along the way to really make that rotation strong. They had some bullpen games, going through the playoffs and everything. So I'm thinking another starter might be in their offing. But, the other thing, too, that you hear is one more power-hitting outfielder that may, be available for the Blue Jays. I think it might come down to some money issues. Dylan Cease had a big contract. Let's say they get Bichette. That's another big contract. Do they have a third big contract in the budget? That is the big question mark. But I think they need another RBI bat in that lineup, be it Bichette or another outfielder with power.
Yeah, and Bichette is obviously just a hit leader. He has obviously some pop in his bat, but he hits 300. He hits about 200 hits a season. Like, he's a very reliable bat. His glove has obviously gone down. I don't know if the Blue Jays would keep him at short, or they would let Jimenez kind of take short and maybe move Bo to second. We saw a little bit of that in the playoffs.
Jimenez was a nice addition last year.
He was. I mean, glove first kind of guy. Still can hit a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, that guy can learn almost any position. Dad, I said I would share how much money each team has before the Cease signing.
Mm-hmm.
I estimated, now for people at home, so I don't have to explain this every video, hopefully. I looked at what they spent in 2025, who they lost and all that stuff, and then basically that number, that gap between what their current payroll is to what they spent last year, that's kind of the number I'm using. Could they go up? Sure. Could teams go down? Sure. I'm just saying that they could run it back with the same amount of money. This is like a safe zone spending. We kind of have to use estimates when we budget, right, everybody? So that's kind of me doing this. I was trying to look up the Cease contract. I don't know if details have been posted like it just happened, but I heard there was some deferrals. So I don't know how much Cease was signed to for 2026. Again, it's a 7-year, $210 million deal. Something tells me that $30 million is going to be a little bit backloaded. So I'm just going to guess here. I'm going to guess he's going to get about $20 million in 2026. Total guess, folks. I could not find it in my quick research. I had $40 million left to spend. Like I said, in that gap, they could spend about $40 million. Could they push the limit more? Sure. With the C signing, I think it's another $20 to $25 million a year that they could offer somebody. With that in mind, that either is going to be all of Bo's money, or it's going to be, again, here's a bullpen piece, here's, a bench bat or a fourth outfielder or something like that, where they can get up to that number. But I don't know if, for example, they could do Bichette and a pitcher, or Bichette and a outfielder. So just something to be mindful of. Toronto fans, I'm sure you're already yelling, like, no, we just got all this World Series money. We'll see what they can spend. Every owner is rich. Every owner can spend more money. You heard it here first, folks. I just don't know how much they push that limit to, and we'll kind of get into this. I think they are the best team in the East already, and they can easily push to get in the playoffs. Maybe they'll get so in mid-season. They allow themselves to have some flexibility payroll-wise going into the season, pick up someone at the deadline, pay the half-the-year contract, and do another postseason push. I don't know if they need to be as aggressive as, for example, the Orioles, Red Sox, or Yankees do moving forward in this offseason.
One of the things, just a snippet for the audience, you can go over your budget, but then Major League Baseball will tax you on the level of income that you go over that budget. The Yankees and Dodgers do it quite often, so depending on how confident you are in the money you have, you can easily go over that figure, but then there's a penalty to go along with that. But again, it all depends how much money you have and how much how much you're willing to go over that budget and pay the tax.
And again, just for the Blue Jays, they already are in that luxury tax thing. I was literally just looking at what they spent last year, which I love giving actual figures. They spent $255 million last year pre-salary cap tax.
Yeah.
This year, they're slated for $220 million already. That does not include Cease. Just want to say
they're going over.
Yeah, that does not include Cease. So again, I'm putting that at now like 240. There's at $15 million. I do think they'll spend more than 255. So that's why I kind of came up with that 20 to 25 million. I think their present day 2026 salary would be like 270, 275 for opening day. I just don't necessarily see Bo and a hitter, Bo and another pitcher, for example. I really like their pitching staff as is. I didn't even think they'd get a power pitcher like Cease. So I was a little surprised, and I already talked to my dad about this offline. Neither of us had Cease signing with the Blue Jays. But yeah. Dad, would you like to move on to the Yankees, who finished tied for first, but in a way second in the East last year?
The Yankees are an interesting little club. I'm sure the fans are quite upset they didn't go further in the playoffs than they did. And I'm sure you're going to get into the losses. But right now, I think they need an outfielder. Bellinger is the kind of like person that's out there. But I really think the Yankees will need to concentrate on an outfielder with power. As somebody kind of get in the middle of the lineup. Protect Judge. And then also, I think they probably just didn't give offers to like 3 or 4 relief pitchers that they got during trades. So their bullpen right now is a little thin. So I think the bullpen and an outfielder with pop are their 2 biggest needs.
I like how we did this almost in reverse. Dad, they have re-signed 2 people already, so I'll get to them in a second. But they're losing Paul Goldschmidt, and I don't think they'll resign. I do think Ben Rice will be their opening day first baseman. They lost Devin Williams and Paul Blackburn, as well as Luke Weaver. I think maybe that's what my dad was referring to as some bullpen arms.
Yes.
Ahmed Rosario, Austin Slater, they're kind of like midseason pickups, if I recall, as backup infielders, fourth outfielders. The big loss here is going to be Cody Bellinger. I think there's rumors for him to come back, but when Trent Grisham accepted his qualifying offer, kind of surprisingly, I thought he'd get a multi-year deal after a well above average season for him.
Career year.
And I thought he would capitalize. I don't know why he didn't. I think that's very interesting. Maybe they're already trying to work out an extension. And Ryan Yarbrough, kind of a swingman, also re-signed. So maybe he'll be a bullpen piece. Maybe once Cole comes back, he'll shift to the bullpen. He's out. Cole's out to mid-May. But yeah, those are the losses. I like to double down on what my dad said. I have a note for both Red Sox and Yankees. It's very similar. They need to go youth or trade the youth. The Yankees have two outfielders, Spencer Jones and Jason Dominguez, young guys who strike out a lot. They have not proven themselves at the MLB level, but they're still very, very young. They are lauded prospects, right? They're every top 100 list. They're top 5 Yankee prospects. If they re-sign Bellinger, they have to trade those guys, because then it's just Grisham, Bellinger, Judge in the outfield. Period. You're gonna have to trade those for whatever other pitchers, other players, whatever it might be. My encouragement to Yankee fans is to go youth. Put the trust in one of these guys, let him platoon, let a star emerge, and trade the other. And I would say let Bellinger go. I really do think, unless you also don't value Rice at first base, and then that's another kid that you got to trade. But yeah, I think I don't see Bellinger on this team in 2026. And I think they'll be more mindful of spending their money on the bullpen arms, like my dad mentioned, and not, for example, more offense or even another pitcher.
It's interesting. Bellinger is the kind of the key to their offseason. He can DH first base outfield. That goes in the equation, in my opinion. And then defensively, he's much better than the two young guys that you mentioned.
Yeah, for sure.
With that in mind, do they kind of go with more of a solid outfield and then work in the young guys, trade the young guys for some, top of the line relief help and everything? So, but right now, is Bellinger? I mean, his dad played for the Yankees. There's that whole, family, connection. Will that be one of their top targets in the offseason? Don't know, but if they don't go that way, your way makes a lot of sense.
We will see. But yeah, that's the Yankees. Dad, is there any other things that we need to cover need-wise before we move on to the Boston Red Sox?
It's interesting how the season ended and the managerial hot seat came up and all that good stuff. I think the Yankees were very upset they didn't go farther and not finishing top of the division. I think they're going to be aggressive this offseason, try to get to the top notch again. And they know they got the work cut out for us.
I did say I was going to say how much money each team has to spend. The Yankees spent $305 million last year. So, and they didn't win a World Series, and they didn't go far in the playoffs. Like I said, a lot of that, Bellinger and Goldschmidt, some other salaries, Devin Williams came off the books. It dropped it down $50 million. So in theory, they have 50 or more million to spend. So they could afford these people. It's just a matter of do they want to, or again invest in some other relievers, closers, whatever it might be. I like Bednar. I like Doval. I don't know who is the closer between those two. Maybe they get another option. There's a lot of relievers, not Emmanuel Clase, but there's a lot of relievers on the market, both trade and free agency, that they could go after and really, focus on their bullpen. I always think they should have gotten a better shortstop too. I think Volpe is not your starting shortstop, Yankees. And if that happens and they let Volpe go, then they can certainly go get Bichette or another shortstop. So I'm not saying they're not going to spend, I'm not saying they're keeping all their money this offseason. I just don't see them investing in Bellinger when in theory it kicks a kid out of his spot, a controllable, talented arm player.
Or they have capital to trade. You don't know which way they're going to go with the GM. The Steinbrenner says, hey, you got carte blanche and everything else. It'd be interesting how they shape that lineup.
If they want a reliever, I don't think Kansas City is married to Carlos Estevez for that long, and they need outfielders. They'll sign any deal. So, just a thought. All right, let's move on to the Red Sox, Dad. We're doing all right. We're at 20 minutes. We did a little stats, and then we did two teams. Let's move on.
We had a preamble.
We had a preamble, a little prologue to the day. Okay, Dad, the Red Sox lost probably just as many players as the Yankees did. Very similar caliber players, in my opinion. Some stars, some role players. They lost Alex Bregman. That's the big name. He opted out of his contract. I was hopeful that Bregman would have kept his 3-year, $40 million a year. That's hard to say no to. So I have to assume he's going for a very, very long contract. Last contract of his life this time. Lucas Giolito had a decent run with Boston, some injury history there. Steven Mott's really good lefty reliever. He's gone. Dustin May, that kind of failed trade project didn't pan out for them. Rob Refsnyder, I really liked him as a versatile infielder. He's gone. Justin Wilson's a reliever. He's gone. Liam Hendricks, again, lots of injury, great story, but just not a great Red Sox. And they non-tendered Nate Lowe at first base. Not surprising with what he was owed. And that is their losses for the 2025-2026 offseason.
Well, the big opening in that lineup is third base.
Could be. I think that's I'll get to that. I'll retort soon.
And, picking up Sonny Gray, which I thought was a great trade for the Red Sox. They gave up 2 young pitchers, and St. Louis, I guess, is open for business. But to pick up Sonny Gray for that rotation, really, really smart. Is there another starting pitcher in the forecast? They could always use probably, a couple bench pieces. But in my opinion, right now, the big focus is on third base and then pitching and bench.
So the Red Sox spent a little over $200 million last year. They did not have to pay taxes. They did not have to pay the salary tax, which is great. With the addition of kind of like a half-price Sonny Gray, because the Cardinals are getting $20 million.
Yeah.
They're at $168 million. So that's $30 million without, $35 million without even changing a dollar on the books. I think they'll spend more. I think either they'll hit that first tax threshold or just be at it. So I'm going to say $50 million that the Red Sox can spend on free agents this offseason, or again, trade for contracts, kind of like Sonny Gray. I don't think the acquisition of Sonny Gray, with how it was kind of structured, took him out of the running for any player. I don't see them getting Kyle Tucker, for example, like the most expensive high-end name on there. But they could get Bregman and they could get Schwarber and. So I think there is some abilities to do a bunch of different things for Breslow to be creative. Like I said with the Yankees, they have to invest in the kids or trade them. So the kids, again, are Roman Anthony. He seems locked in, obviously. Yeah. But the big 3 that I'm talking about from there are Marcelo Mayer, who kind of took that third base, second base, shortstop role when Bregman was injured or Story might have been down for a bit. Tristan Casas is back. He's always been kind of a weird athlete. Does he have a future there? Does he not? And Christian Campbell. Like, where does he fit into this whole equation as well? So I think if they sign Bregman, or if they sign a Pete Alonso, or they sign a Kyle Schwarber, that could mean Yoshida goes, that could mean Casas goes, maybe Campbell too. It seems Marcelo Mayer has always been a big name for Boston. I think they would keep him over the other 3. But again, they have to create holes and roles for some of these players. And if they, like again, if you're Tristan Casas and you see Pete Alonso come in, we got Rafael Devers, Bregman situation 2.0. One of them's got to go. So just kind of interested to see how both of these teams, do they value the youth and we invest in these people, they're going to become something, we believe in these kids, or hey, we're going to ship them out for something else. The 2 pitchers that the Red Sox traded, the Red Sox have a lot of pitching actually. I don't know if they'll get a pitcher in the free agency this offseason. They have a lot of people on the IL that in theory are coming back. Tanner Houck's the latest. He's Tommy John. He's coming back like playoffs next year. But Cutter Crawford, Patrick Sandoval, and Hunter Dobbins are all fighting for the rotation spot. So they might even have depth to trade, which is always scary, depth to trade at the rotation too. But Crochet, Gray, and Brian Bayo are really your locked-in 3, and then it's a fight for 4 and 5, which, again, any of those names mentioned. Peyton Toll and Connor Lee early, also fantastic options for them to go down the stretch with.
2 quick little points. What I read and what is always on the internet reports is most GMs now go into a season with like 12 starting pitchers, majors in AAA, because you're always going to run into injuries. And credit to the Red Sox for that youth movement. They got 2 Gold Gloves last year in the outfield. I mean, when's the last time the Red Sox had 2 Gold Gloves? So good for the Red Sox and their scouting department. They're really bringing up some talented people.
Dad, I think we can move on to the fourth place Tampa Bay Rays, who just completed their roof again. They're going to be back in Tropicana. That wasn't mean. I was really happy for them. Dad, the Rays are always interesting. They are they hover around $100 million in payroll every year. They're at $89 million right now, and that's kind of assuming some arbitration numbers. They let Pete Fairbanks go, Dad. They non-tendered a big 2020 World Series guy. They got rid of Christopher Morel, as well as a midseason pickup with Adrian Hauser. They didn't lose much, but I also don't think they'll buy that much. They kind of never do, but let me hear your needs, Dad.
I think big thing is a catcher.
Okay. You don't like the Fortes trade they did with Miami?
You know what? I'm thinking they're going to go after somebody to fit a veteran catcher to fit that role for the pitching staff and everything. I mean, now a lot of teams get two strong catchers to give everybody some relief and everything. So, again, teams with two catchers seem to do much better as the season progresses. And then I think they lack power. So they need somewhere along the way to get some more power in that lineup, score some more runs. They've always been a pitching-heavy team, but in the last 2 years, they really lack power. So I think they're looking for maybe some outfielders with power and a catcher, share the duties, 1A and 1B kind of situation. I think that's the two biggest needs.
I think there's an opportunity for them to trade. I know that's always very Tampa Bay-esque, but Brandon Lau has been in trade rumors for years as a power-hitting second baseman. They have two first basemen. I know they can easily do first base DH, but Yandy Diaz, I think, is in his last year of his contract and earning more than Aranda, so they could easily trade him to a first baseman needy team. That's, again, half the teams on that we're going to talk about today. To fill holes, they have a really below-average shortstop. They don't have a closer anymore unless they hope Griffin Jacks slides into that role after releasing Fairbanks. I don't see this team pushing, so I don't see them getting a whole lot. I don't know how much I'm going to talk about them in my top 50, but they just don't have the spending abilities like the three teams we just mentioned, who, if you're a fan of the Red Sox, Blue Jays, or Yankees, and you said your team has a $100 million payroll next year, you're freaking out. You're like, what are we doing? Double it, triple it.
It's a tough division.
It's a third of the Yankee payroll. Just put that in perspective.
And they've always have stayed under budget. They do a great job scouting. They really do well. They always seem to get some young, up-and-coming star that come along. But I think they just don't score enough runs. So moving back to the stadium, will that bring some more revenue? Time will tell. But right now, I think offense is their biggest problem. And a bullpen.
Yep. There's some issues. On paper, I think Tampa Bay looks to be the last-place team right now. We'll see what the offseason holds. But Baltimore, we'll switch right there. Baltimore is promising hope to their fans. They said they'd be at the top end of the free agent pool. I assume that would be pitching, but it could be hitters as well. They've been active this offseason already. They've already traded Grayson Rodriguez, a very big prospect who had a lot of injury history, for 1 year of a power-hitting left fielder that strikes out a lot. That doesn't have a lot of high average. But yeah, their losses, lots of pitchers. Sugano, Zach Eflin. They non-tendered the swingman Albert Suarez, which I really liked him a couple years ago.
He did a nice job when given a chance.
Yeah, there's 7 catchers they went through last year. They got rid of Gary Sanchez and Jacob Stallings, and they non-tendered, they non-tendered release Jorge Mateo as well. In theory, the Orioles have the most amount of money to spend in the East. They have a huge gap. I estimate they could, if they wanted to, Baltimore, spend up to $75 million on free agents this offseason. Now, will they do that, Dad?
No.
Okay, tell me more.
I think they'll spend the bulk of that money on pitching. Their starting rotation's in disarray. So right now, I see them in the market for one of the top 7 pitchers that are on the free agent market. I think they're going to sign at least one. Maybe one good one and one middle of the road kind of starter. They really need to bulk up that pitching. And don't forget, they traded all their bullpen pieces, at the deadline. So they need to replenish the bullpen as well. They got Kittredge back. But again, right now, who's the closer?
Nobody.
Correct. So I'm thinking the bulk of that money is going into pitching. The offense, I think, is going to be fine. Mateo, I thought was a nice bench piece. Maybe they'll re-sign him, who knows? But I think right now the bulk of that money goes to pitching. I'm surprised they traded a pitcher for outfield help.
A pitching needy team trades a pitcher.
Yeah. And you know what? It's one of those, Jake Arrieta stories that the Orioles give up on a pitcher, and then all of a sudden the pitcher comes back, finds himself, and is a huge success. I think he's only 26, 27 years old. So what I read after the trade, Rodriguez said he's healthy, and
Every player says that about themselves, though.
Yeah.
He's not going to say I'm a piece of shit. I'm just saying, he's still getting, league minimum, I think.
Yeah,
so.
But did the Angels roll the dice and say, let's take a chance? Because they're not going to sign this guy, probably after next year. So they got a pitcher with at least 3 to 4 years controllable. They're in control. So who knows? I just think that right now, if the Orioles don't get pitching, they're back in last place.
I completely agree. I was just looking at my notes, and to tease the top 50 as we wrap up this first episode, I do have the Orioles getting 2 pitchers in that top 50. One is, I would say, a top-end pitcher, and one is an innings eater, middle-of-the-road guy. And we'll tease you to be seen on what remains of, if I have them for any other offensive pieces. But yeah, there's... I'm not a fan of the offense. I know the focus will be pitching. I completely agree with you there. Their outfield kind of as it's now, again, these people can rotate. I don't think a single one of them's a true center fielder. I think they're all corner outfielders. I would put them all in left field as well. But Taylor Ward, Colton Cowser, and Tyler O'Neill, that's their starters. Dylan Beavers had that call up. There's Enrique Bradfield that can play as well. But again, I don't know if they hit Beavers and Bradfield. And if they're in as defensive substitutions, then offense gets the issue. So I don't think Cowser's a center fielder. I don't think he has the range like Mullins had, or he's making those diving catches like a Harrison Bader or whatever. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're linked to outfielders or even sign an additional person. O'Neill played 30 games for them last year or so.
And a 3-year
And of course
deal.
he took his option. There's going to be debates with the catcher. We got Basayo that had his long-term extension. Long-term is relative in this sense, but I think 5 years. And then Adley Rutschman as well. Is that a catching DH situation? Are they going to ease Basayo in? I just don't think you spend that money on a backup rookie. There's the Mayo Mountcastle. Are either one of them a qualified first baseman? I think Gunnar, Westberg, and Holiday are the stable pieces of that offense and positions. But Gunner's regressed a little bit from his rookie year kind of form. Jackson Holiday isn't like an all-star. Jordan Westberg's not an all-star. So you do need some pop in that lineup if you're going to compete in the East. I know they don't play everyone as much anymore. I can't, talk about that enough. But you put this lineup against, Boston, Yankees, or Toronto, and it's
pale in comparison.
And that's before looking at pitching. So yes, they need acquisitions on both ends of the ball.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. I just think that if they get off to a slow start like they did last year, it's going to be the same scenario. They go into trading deadline and purge people again. I think the fans won't like that. But again, they're looking at Taylor Ward to give them that right-handed power that they lacked last year, and I think they're going to give Bradfield big leash he may end up being in this the starting lineup opening day just to have that qualified center fielder, put him at the bottom of the lineup and let him kind of learn. But he was a Gold Glove winner in the minor leagues, so that's your defensive center fielder. I don't know if his future's next year or a year after that, but I think they got high hopes for him.
Just to put what I would say is the best rotation in the East versus the worst rotation in the East. So Toronto Blue Jays have Gossman, Cease, Yasavage, Barrios, and Bieber. All right, there's a Cy Young winner in there. There's some Cy Young nominees. There's future Cy Young winners as well.
Yeah.
Best rotation in the East by far. Healthy as of November 2025. The Orioles have Tyler Rogers, who had amazing flashes. He got Cy Young votes. Kyle Bradish, returning from injury, used to be really, really good. Then there's a drop-off. Dean Kremer. Then there's a drop-off. Cade Povich. And then there's bottom of the earth with McDermott. Or pick your rookie starter. Boy, oh boy, is that not
they all could get lit.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. You got maybe a solid game one. You got maybe a game two bullpen day, and then you're getting your ass kicked. You
Yeah.
don't have a series
Yeah.
against any of these teams in a playoff format or any kind of thing like that. Crochet and Gossman and Fried, and once Cole gets back, and that Cam Schlittler guy who had just a fantastic playoff against the Red Sox too. The Orioles are not in the same league as majority, and then the Tampa Bay Rays pitching staff's better than the Orioles too. So they really need to do whatever's possible to get big names signed to a long-term deal.
I agree. I think for the most part, Elias has been on TV saying they're going to be very active, blah, 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 blah. But until the fans see that he's actually backing his words up with, signings and not people that are middle of the road or below, I think that's the only way that the Orioles are going to get stronger. And I think you made a valid point. They have a couple good players, but the rest are kind of like they've fallen off a little bit from their stardom. So right now, I think it's going to be interesting offseason. We'll see what they come up with pitching, but they could use a few more bats.
We'll close out with one final thoughts about the Orioles. You can't always look at these teams with rose-colored glasses. You can't always look at this is a fun little baby bird bunch, and these all people came up together, and they're like clones of each other. They all look alike. Like that was the romantic side of baseball when 2022, 2023, when all these names started coming up. Now they've had 2-3 seasons. You have to be very willing to say this guy's not working. We have to move on. We have to trade or sign or whoever. Again, they're kind of a little past the Red Sox, Yankees. What do we try with the rookies? All those guys I mentioned with Boston and New York have under a year service time. You look at Holiday, who's over a year. Westberg, I think, is over a year. Kobe Mayo might be just at that point where you have to, again, decide if, like, all right, we're going to go. This is going to be our player. Like, I would love the Orioles to be linked to a power hitting first baseman. Honestly, like, why shouldn't they talk to Pete Alonso? Can you imagine Pete Alonso hitting stuff on a Utah street for the next 5 years?
Yeah.
Why aren't you doing that? Or Kyle Schwarber hitting literally the building, the warehouse, with his bombs as a lefty. And I really think they should explore all options. I understand the focus on pitching, but if that's all their front office is doing, they still won't be, in my mind, competitive in 2026 if they don't address the offense.
Just 30 seconds. They did so well when they had the number one draft choices, when they were really a bad team. All of those, really helped them out. But then they started winning and they got, picking 20th or 21st or something like that. Since then, the draft has not yielded any star players. So they did well when they had the number one pick, but then they drafted down on the list. Then it's come back to haunt them. They really haven't had a future star come up, for a while.
Truly final thought with everyone getting posted from Korea and Japan. The Orioles got Sugano last year. They were able to recruit like an Asian athlete. So there is some paved roads there for someone from the KBO or whatever to come over. So if they lose out on like the American forefront, they can certainly turn to the Asian market and see what options they have there. Stop looking at my picks. I don't have any Orioles on this page. Get out of here. Get out of here. I got some stuff cooking. All right. We're gonna move on to, I guess we'll do the NL East next.
Okay.
We'll be our East Coast Bias podcast. So again, we are the Father and Son Pastime Podcast on Facebook and YouTube, and we are at Pastime Podcast _ on Twitter and Instagram. Give us follows. We'll post more on those, whatever social media grows fastest. Dad, anything to share before we move to the NL?
No, that was a lot of information, so well done.
We're going to get real loopy. If this is the first episode of the day, there'll be coffees and sugar and meals and a whole bunch of things. We'll record literally until the light you see behind us is out, because we record from like truly dawn to dusk sometimes.
Yes.
So thank you all for listening. Under 40 minutes, that's our goal for each of these offseason outlooks. 8 minutes or so a team. Bye.